is going to be about subtraction in Key Stage 1, specifically in Year 1 and Year 2. Children start out with subtraction in Year 1, they start by building the foundations that will help them throughout the rest of their time studying subtraction. So they begin by looking at counting back, and they practice counting back using number lines and objects. Problems are framed as taking away, often using tangible scenarios. For example, I've got 3 cakes and 2 of them get eaten. How many have I got left? And there's a lot of emphasis put on vocabulary such as subtract, take away, less and fewer. And the children are introduced to the minus and the equals symbols to help them visualise that as well. With the concept of subtraction, the children begin by using concrete resources. So they'll have access to lots of different manipulatives such as counters, cubes, numicon, base 10 for example, to represent subtraction physically. And they'll also do lots of physical activities where they move objects from one side or take them away to model subtraction step by step. So if you look at the top left hand side of the screen, you'll see an example of us using a tens frame and counters and physically crossing them out or moving them away to represent the act of subtraction. They then connect their physical actions to the written number sentence. For example, 7 take away 3 is equal to 4. I've also popped in another couple of images here, one of which is an example of how we would make a subtraction activity into a bit of a story. For example, you've got a group of apples, a certain amount of eaten, how many do you have left? And also an example using a number line as well, which I'll explain in more detail in a little while. So after they've used their concrete resources, they then move on to looking at a pictorial representation. So like you saw on the previous slide with the tens frame, they can draw dots or pictures and cross them out to represent the subtraction visually. We also do lots and lots of work using the part-whole models, and they use these diagrams to help show how subtraction finds a missing part in a whole. So you've got the whole at the top and then you've got the 2 parts that make the whole at the bottom as well. As the children progress into Year 2, they begin to build on the foundations that they started to develop in Year 1, and they move on to subtract a 1-digit number from a 2-digit number this time, and with multiples of 10 as well, progressing gradually as they go. They also are introduced to regrouping, so this is where we cross the tens boundary. Obviously, when we jump from a 1-digit number to a 2-digit number, there's always a chance that we might have to cross our tens boundary. So they do that with clear models and lots of practical support, again using all of our concrete resources as well to help us with that. We do lots of work in Year 2 using number lines and partitioning, and the number line helps provide scaffolding for mental and written methods so they can visually jump back on the number line to represent subtractions. So some of the strategies and methods that we look at in Year 2, like I said, we look at jumping back. We use a number line for this quite often, so we jump back in tens and units to help us find an answer. We do work on partitioning, where the children practice breaking numbers down into their different parts. For example, 25 take away 12 could be seen as 25 take away 10 take away 2. So they break down the 12 into the tens and ones to help them do it in a smaller chunk. We also begin to look at written methods such as column subtraction without borrowing to start with, and that's our first introduction to the formal practice of a written method. We also link it to addition and understand that subtraction undoes what addition does, and that helps to support the reasoning and calculation fluency. In Year 2, there's also lots of work on problem solving and reasoning. So we do some work on word problems, where the children begin to apply subtraction skills to real world questions and scenarios. They then look at reasoning style questions where they're encouraged to explain their methods and justify their solutions. And finally, we look at fluency and focus on practice and confidence to promote secure subtraction strategies. So this is where their number bonds really come into play to help them to be able to do some of the subtraction style questions in their heads when they're ready to move on from using all of the concrete resources that we start off with. So for progression and mastery, obviously in year one we begin with the foundations, so you build a strong base in the subtraction language and the concepts are built from there. In year two you move into our area of depth where the children extend their skills with more complex methods and reasoning, and the White Rose Maths really helps to ensure continuous growth and support for all abilities, and each step is designed to ensure that every learner achieves mastery, developing both understanding and confidence in subtraction overall. Real focus on using lots and lots of concrete resources, relating the subtraction questions to real life scenarios such as eating cakes or moving counters, for example. And you can see that there's a clear progression from year one to year two, where in year one they're doing their numbers in their ones and 20 and below. And then when we get into year two, we're moving on to look at bigger numbers where we've got 2 digits, subtracting 1 digits, or even numbers that cross our tens boundary as well. Hopefully that's helped.